business. We are in a market that you must have this skill set. I have the best guest that I know that I can possibly come up with to teach you the lessons of perseverance. He's the author of The Long Run, Lessons in Perseverance, both in running, in business, and in life. His name is Ben Andrews. You are not going to want to miss this episode. I am thrilled to have Ben here with us today. Stay tuned. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. No matter what you want to do in life, if it's going to be impactful, it's going to have some adversity. It's going to have some resistance. That's just the nature of doing great things. And the real estate market right now is thinning the herd. It's identifying who is willing to persevere, who's willing to have the right mindset, the right habit set, and the right skill set. And today we're going to go deep on those topics. For those of you that tried to tune in yesterday and had some tech issues, we're grateful that you're back. It's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it. What I learned from Ben and you all missed out on, you're going to hear today. Again, today's guest, his name is Ben Andrews. He's a legend in his own right. Again, he's the author of The Long Run. That's just his most recent accomplishment. His life is riddled with all kinds of accomplishments prior to that and lessons in perseverance. Ben Andrews, my good friend, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. And I can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
So, man, I'm thrilled to have you here. I know you, it's funny, just 2 nights ago, I opened up a blog post or an email from someone who's had a massive impact upon me, Ryan Buffini. I know the same is true of you. And who is he highlighting? But lo and behold, Ben Andrews. How the year was 2008. And you and your wife, I think, maybe sold a couple of homes that year. We're struggling big time, wondering if you were going to make it. And now here you are selling close to 75 homes this past year, 72 homes this past year, and just doing some amazing things in the real estate industry. I'm excited to talk about perseverance. So let's get right into this. Let's give the folks what they came here for, which is not just to look at your amazing hair, but it's more than that. It's really a look at how do we take the lessons that you've learned and in a short period of time, help them understand how to persevere. So let's dive into that. Let's take us back, Ben, to 2008. What were you feeling? What were you experiencing? And then walk us through how you pulled through that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was feeling like a loser. I mean, if there's one word that would have identified who I was at that time, I just felt like a loser. I wasn't providing at home. I wasn't providing for my family. I wasn't providing any sort of future. We were 6-7 months behind on our mortgage. We were several months behind on our HOA dues, to the point where we weren't really invited to our HOA meetings anymore. And it took me a hard, long look in the mirror to say, there's something you're not doing right, and you can change it, but you have to do it. My wife was really good at the relationships. My parents, who preceded us in the business, were very good at the relationships. And I felt as though I was a salesman, and I didn't want my friends to think I was salesy. So I just focused on internet leads, and that was my bread and butter. But when the loaf goes away, there's no butter to be spread. And so I was left exposed. You know, the market might have told me in 2006, 2005, 2007, oh, Ben Andrews, you're worth $225,000 a year. Well, I'm not. The market was worth that. And when 2008 hit, I think we made $26,000 before taxes. It was a rough year, and that's what Ben Andrews was worth to the market. So it was a rough time.
Boy, that's I want that to sink in a little bit for everybody. Like, not $26,000 from one commission check, not $26,000 from in 1 month. That was for the year, right? Yeah. That's tough, right? And there's some agents right now, like, this is not a laughing matter. There's agents out there right now that are experiencing that. But I want to drive home a certain point here, because you and I are absolutely the same page that warm market is better than cold market, right? Now, some would disagree, but this is my show, so we're gonna go with that, right? But you experienced when a market started to turn, internet leads followed suit. Is that true? Is that what you saw?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was, to me, it was, how do I say it? It was the the path of least resistance. It was easy. I got a lead coming in and I'm going to chase it. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is when they see when they can save some money, when they can get something a little sexier, they're out. And so for me, I was left with no skill set really. I didn't know how to negotiate, and when I say negotiate, I didn't know how to relay my value. What is Ben Andrews' value proposition? Today, my mission statement is I'm going to outcare my competition, period. That's it. I might not get you the best deal, but I'm going to outcare. And I think with care comes results. And at the time, I didn't have that. At the time, it was, if I don't do a good job for you, I got another one emailing me in an hour. This is before Zillow. This is before all these other platforms. And a warm market is so much easier because people are coming to you because they do like you, because they do trust you. And it made life easier. I wasn't chasing anything.
I've had this observation as I've heard, right? As you know, I coach agents as well. And the thing that stood out to me is that this same concept is happening right now, where internet leads that were once good and abundant are bad. And people scratch their heads like, why is that happening? And I believe it has something to do with this, is that in a market like this, people are getting their news from the internet. And people don't read articles, they read headlines. In markets like this, news outlets, which let's be honest, they're selling news. They're not. That's what they're selling. And so the way that they sell it is by taking the most sensational component of any market and they're making a headline out of it. And the reality is that's the only thing that people are reading. Very few people actually read the article. They're only reading the headlines. And so they're a tainted lead because the only thing they're reading are these sensationalized versions of what's happening in the market. So those same people who have now this very limited perspective on the market, sensationalized perspective on the market, are now a lead. And it's like, they're jaded, man. They're not going to be a good lead. They think the sky is falling, the bubble's going to pop, on and on and on, right? Whereas they don't have someone who actually cares for them saying, let's personalize that for you. First of all, let me give you all the data, the entire article, and how this specifically applies to you, which is what happens when you care for somebody, right? When you have someone who actually cares, not just in closing the deal, but in getting you the best outcome, which is now what you've pivoted to, it's a totally different experience for people, right? Totally different experience. Which is killer.
Yep.
It's a killer.
Absolutely.
So this pivot happened, right? And I would recommend anybody out there that's like, man, my internet leads were great. Maybe it's time that you go back to warm market, right? Maybe it's time that you take a look at, maybe I need some referral systems in place to actually take care of people. And I loved how you said, Ben, I really went from a value proposition to a mission statement. Like that says a lot about like how far you've come, right? It's like, now, there's nothing wrong with value propositions. I think that's a strong thing every business should have. But now you're much deeper than that. It's about actually serving people, like being on a mission to help them get what's best for them, which is super cool.
Right.
Super cool.
Well, it's interesting. Today I had a sign call. I haven't had a sign call in 6 months. That's not the wheelhouse I live in. I get referrals, and I don't get a lot of sign calls. I had 2 today. And interestingly, I asked the woman and the gentleman who called me a couple hours later, how many realtors have not called you back? And the woman said 2 and the gentleman said 4. And the gentleman asked me, why did you ask that question? I said, because I was that guy 12, 14 years ago, because I was getting scared and I didn't want to call the person back and get my butt kicked because I knew it was a bad lead. And so I think we're back to that same market where the market will level itself out, but realtors will also fall to the lowest denominator as well. And if you just call and care, you're going to be one step ahead of your competition.
Yeah. And I think there's a great scripture that you'll probably recognize, that love casteth out all fear.
Right. Yeah.
And I think when we hear that, it's like, if you're fearful right now about what's happening in the market, it may be because you just like, there needs to be an increase of care, of love for the people that you serve. And I think that there's some probably wisdom for all of us to kind of ponder on that.
Years ago, I will say, my team and I, we flew back to New York and tried to meet with Barbara Corcoran, and we got her assistant. And I told the guy, I said, man, respectfully, I didn't fly back here to meet with you. I flew back to meet with Barbara Corcoran. And he said, well, if you ever run your team right, you'll know that the admin knows more that's going on than the team lead in some cases. But one of the things that he left us with is he said, In a good market, people don't need information. In a bad market, people want information. In a in-between market, people need information. And that is where you can make or break your career. And so I'm looking at myself now as a rookie. I'm approaching this market as a rookie to say, okay, I'm going to make myself a business out of the next 12 months because it's an in-between market and no one really knows what's going on. And this is when we get to shine and be professionals.
Yeah. Boy, I love how kind of our three promises of today's episode are all kind of merging together here. Is the getting really your hands and fingers dirty and learning the market and doing the homework, caring enough to do that will actually cause any concern about the market to go away, right? When if you're prepared, you won't fear. Like, you will be in a good spot because you can serve people and you want to serve them at a really high level, which is what I hear you telling us to do. Is like, agents, if you want to be in business for the long run, hence get Ben's book. There's all kinds of reasons behind lessons about that. You can find it on Amazon. But in addition to that, like, get in and like learn the business, pretend like Ben, who's been at this for a long time at a really high level, and start over. Like, what's really happening right now? Like, peel away the assumptions. What's really happening? And love that. I was speaking at a economic summit today. It wasn't the keynote, but they invited me up to say a few things, kind of unprepared. But I gave the illustration that when I was a kid, my mom loved our family doctor. And I think about why is because I had a seed wart on my hand. Anyway, and he was up on the wall. He was drawn out on the wall. Like, here's what it looks like. And they were going to freeze this thing off. My mom was like, wow, that's so helpful, right? Coming from from a medical background. And I think this market is a complex issue, right? It's kind of like a medical thing to most people, in the sense that it's a little bit mysterious. And somebody that can take the time, have the care, have the patience and the concern to really go in and draw something out on the wall with their finger and be like, here's what's really happening, and here's why it's happening, and here's what's happening next, will just put you so much further ahead of the competition, because most people either don't care or they haven't done the work to really be able to explain the complex into something really simple like that. Right.
Yep. Don't use inside terms on the outside, right? You don't want to use the terms that we all talk about within our community of realtors with your clients. They don't know what you're talking about. They feel dumb, they feel inferior, and now you're going to have a hostile experience the whole way through.
Boy, that's really good, Ben. I love that.
I got nuggets for days, Justin.
we're gonna keep talking for days. Eventually, I'm gonna get all these out of you.
All right.
Let's go. By the way, let's make a kind of our big announcement that we promised.
Sure.
Right. So for those of you that are anywhere near the Portland market on October 19th, we're doing a very special event. It's going to be an event hosted by Think Bigger Real Estate. Keynoting at that event is going to be Ben Andrews. He's going to go much deeper on the topic, so we aren't going to have time to cover today. But you're going to walk out of there with a bulletproof plan on how to dominate in Q4 in 2023, and it's going to be awesome. So again, stay tuned for more details, but save the date, the morning of October the 19th. It's a Wednesday. Excited and thrilled and honored to have Ben Andrews help us really deliver some big value to everybody that attends that today or on that day. Ben, let's go back to mindset. So for those that don't know this about Ben broke the once impossible 4-minute mile barrier. Yeah, that was this guy. And not only did he do that, but he's gone on again to overcome some incredible adversity. Again, back to plug in the book. Go back and read the stories. They're incredible. But he really has mastered like overcoming and persevering through difficult times. So in this market right now, Ben, some are questioning, right? Like deals that they had moving towards closing blew up, right? Interest rates going up as high as they did, as fast as they did, has really given some people some whiplash and caused some grief and some interruptions in kind of what people were planning and what they're doing. What advice would you have, having been through what you've been through, having done what you've done, to give us a skill set really around improving our mindset during challenging times?
Sure. The first thing is to read the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter. That book changed my life. And it's a book about what you say when you talk to yourself. 96% of all communication with ourselves is internal. And about 92% of that is negative. It's just how we're designed, unfortunately. So we have to get ahead of that and figure out how to talk to ourselves in a positive manner. The other thing, as far as an exercise to do, I do this about once a week, is I will draw a big circle and I will say, here are the things that I can control. I can control what I eat today. I can control, what time I go to bed. I can't control the market. I can't control interest rates. I can't control if a client is going to call me back. I can't control if this realtor is going to be easy to work with, but I can control how I'm going to treat them, which will in turn make them maybe a little more communicative with me. Focusing on what you can control just takes the weight off. My coach used to do this with me in college and say, Ben, what can you control? Well, you're running against the #1 miler in the world next week, Kevin Sullivan from Canada. How in the world are you going to beat him? And it was about 2 weeks out. I said, Coach, he's got this, he's got that, and all the things that I didn't have. And he said, Ben, what do you have? And I remember for those 2 weeks, I ran a ton by myself. He had me just disciplined. The team's doing workouts, and I'm running in lane 8 all by myself. And I remember just out on the roads, doing different parts of my run, just saying, Ben Andrews, here he comes. He's known for his kick. 200 meters to go. Here he comes. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, when I raced Kevin Sullivan, he blew the doors off of me by the chance. He ran the fastest time in the world that year. But I improved 8 seconds in that one race. And it was in the last 200 meters that I passed 4 people and ran one of the fastest times in the United States that year. But it was all of this self-talk that I told myself, I've got this great kick. I'm going to go with 200 meters to go. I'm going to pass everyone on the turn. And it's exactly what I did. I almost manifested it, but it was because my brain had already come to the conclusion that this is what's going to happen. We just got to get in the position to do it. So talking to yourself in a very positive way. Another discipline that I use is the 5-minute journal. It's a very simple, concise way to bookend your day with positivity. There's studies that show that when you journal about the positive things that you did throughout the day and the things that you could have done better, the things that you enjoyed, you get to relive them in your REM sleep. And the things that you didn't do good, that you could have done better, those are things that you actually work out in your brain while you're asleep. And so when you wake up, your subconscious doesn't remember the negative. It remembers, hey, I wasn't great on this, but I did better, even though you didn't do anything except go to sleep. The mind is the most important muscle we've got. It's not even a muscle, but it's just a thing. So getting ahead of it and almost playing games with yourself on how to trick your mind. That would be the biggest thing for mindset.
Such powerful insight. A part of your book that I loved, I was actually just revisiting it. You went through some pretty serious adversity as a youth. I won't spill the beans on what that was, but to the point to where you needed some counseling. Yeah. And in that story, your counselor would talk about, you would start to share some of your fears, and he would ground you and say, is that real right now? Right? Is that real now, or is that what could be in the future? Talk to us about maybe how that shows up also when agents start to let their mind run away like a runaway freight train with what's real and what could be real. Is that something that you still utilize today?
Well, I hate to sound like a rookie author, but it's beyond humbling for people to reference my book and then actually pull something out of it that they actually read. So thank you. I appreciate that, man. It's super humbling. I absolutely do. And, I'm not perfect by any means. I still have pitfalls in my life, but what I try to do as I approach different scenarios is, what is the best scenario out of this situation? Not focusing on what is the worst. What is the best? Now, the best could be a lot of different things that could have some negative consequences, but I always try to focus on the positive. And is this scenario real? Are interest rates going to go to 10%? I had a buyer today that was all freaked out of, interest rates are going to go to 10%, they say, by the end of the year. And I said, but are they today? Is that a fact today? So the same thing my counselor was using. He said, well, no. Ben, I guess we should just sign their counteroffer. I think we should, So I owe Mr. Steven a referral fee, I think, because I'm still using the practices that he gave me from 30 years ago.
I do believe that that's a pitfall that we all fall into, is for some reason maybe the same reason why our eyes always look to the sensationalized media headlines is that our heads create a very similar experience of like, okay, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? And for some reason, we pull the worst case scenario into today. And then we even look at the past and look at our biggest blunders and we pull them into today. And we wonder why we don't show up being our best when we're like weighted down by the worst of yesterday and the worst of tomorrow. It's like, no wonder, man, you got a heavy load. You're like a mule with like a bunch of packs on you. Like, start to unload that stuff. Like, the past is gone, learn from it. The future, what's the best case scenario? I love that. Like, that's a whole different perspective. Like, what if this were to happen? Like, how much lighter and confident would you be to actually, because at the end of the day, what we do now will have a direct impact upon what we get in the future. And so we have to protect the now. We have to protect the present, right? Because if not, then all these other things will weight us down and allow us to perform at a level that does actually give us a bad future, as opposed to
my mom
inspired one.
Yeah. My mom, who got me into this business, she used to start so many conversations with me as a kid, so many as a young kid. Ben, what's the best scenario that's going to come out of this? What's the best scenario? What's the best thing that's going to happen today? And I would just go into the day knowing that, well, this is going to happen because this is the best thing that can happen. And it just having that mindset through my own blunders, I've had to reteach myself the same principles. But when you approach that, you are going through life and now you're interacting, we're all pebbles on a pond, right? We get to then create more positivity for other people around us because we're not walking around with like the pack mule saying, well, this could happen, woe is me. If you're going out with abundance, you're going to be able to give it out in loaves.
Man, I love that. Here, talk to us a little bit about morning routine. I know when we spoke yesterday, you talked about how important that is. Would you go into that a little bit about how this really builds a foundation for everything else?
Sure. For me, I'm a man of faith, so I will start my day with prayer before I ever get out of bed. Before my 2 feet hit the ground, I'm in prayer. I'm doing acts of gratitude. Lord, thank you for this. Some of the little things. This morning it was for the pillow I have. I love my pillow. I've been thinking about my pillow all day because I'm excited to lay on it again. Beyond that, I get up, I do some exercises, some stretching. This is all before I leave the bedroom. It gets me grounded before I go out and take on the world. So I'm putting on the armor of Ben Andrews, where I'm getting my mind right spiritually. I'm getting my mind right with my journaling. I'm getting my mind right with flexibility. I'm also, when I'm doing my stretching, I'm thinking about how far could my mind stretch to the unknown? Like, what is possible for Ben Andrews? And then I'm ready to take on the world. And it's a lot of little disciplines that add up to a pretty good day, but it all happens before I leave the bedroom, before I leave the house. I'm a Wim Hof guy. I'm doing cold showers. If you haven't looked into that, it's a weird deal, but it's fascinating. And I find myself doing these breathing exercises when I'm stressed out, and it's all about the cold shower routine. So if whoever's listening, if you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's a real thing, and it's so helpful.
The intentionality with which you speak about your mornings. We've talked about how this is such a foundation, right? We're going to move here into this episode really talking about the habits, but I would argue that if you don't have the foundation in place where your body, your mind, your spirit, your heart are taken care of in advance, like, you're not showing up in a position to race. It's kind of like, Ben, you're running here in 5 minutes. Like, I'm not warmed up, coach. I haven't even trained. Like, what? Like, I can't do it now. Your performance, right? Pulling another story out of your book when a competitive coach kept you out late at night.
Brilliant.
So that you would bomb the next day. It's kind of like not having a morning routine is very similar to that. Like, we're kind of sabotaging ourselves to not be able to perform at our highest level. I know for me, as soon as I get in my office and the clock strikes about 8:30, 9 o'clock, like I better have all the stuff that I really wanted to do for the day out of the way, or I'm going to start getting demands from me.
Right.
And so for me, it's early, similar to you. And I hit those 4 areas, right? Body, mind, heart, and spirit. And then I have a very specific plan for my business, the kind of the one thing I need to do in my business. And without that, I'm really like a ship without a rudder. It's kind of like, okay, who needs me? Okay, what emails are coming in? What texts are coming? And I'm just floating around. There's nothing intentional about my business. And I look up and I'm like, I'm not where I want to be this month. Why not? Oh, I see. Because I was a courier for everybody else, and couriers don't get paid very well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I just got back from London, England. I was there with my mom. We went over for the Queen's funeral, which was a bucket list thing I did with my mom. So much fun. But we were touring the Tower of London, and it was built in like 1080. 1080. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
And I asked our tour guide, I said, wait a minute. This 1080, you got to be kidding me. Like, where's the documentation on this? And I said, how in the world do I have home inspections blow up over a 1973 ranch in Beaverton? And you've got a Tower of London here from over 1,000 years ago. How is that possible? And he said, well, come over here. I want to show you something. He pulled me around. He said, it's this. It's the foundation. I said, yeah. We have foundations in the United States also. What's different about this one? He said, this one's different because it was not worried about the weather. It was worried about the elements. You see, there was a moat that was all around this entire structure. So we were not only concerned about the weight of what was above us. We were not concerned about the wind. We were not only concerned about the water. We were concerned about all of it. And when you take all of that and you create a foundation, it can stand over 1,000 years. Now, how is your thing in Beaverton? He couldn't pronounce it, but to me, that was like, okay, that's mind, body, spirit, soul, that I have to get my foundation, my armor on every day, because everything's coming at us. And now it comes at us so quickly. My team gets a little frustrated with me because I don't respond to text messages so quickly, because I don't have alerts on. I don't have a single alert on my phone unless it's my mom, my dad, my brother, my wife, my son calling me. That's it. It's the only alert that I have on my phone. And for me, it works because I'm ADD and I'll get super distracted. And so I had to create those boundaries within my own life to say, okay, now I look at my phone a lot, no lie, but it's me directing it, not it directing me. Brian Buffini once said, an outgoing call to a client is going to take 2 minutes to shore up an issue. An incoming call about the same issue is going to take 20 minutes. And so I tried to get on the offense of that and say, okay, how does that relate to Ben Andrews? Well, if people are coming at me, it's going to be 20 minutes because it's always going to be going on. But if I can say, I'm going to look at my phone when I want, okay, 2 minutes, boom, I don't have anything. Okay, good. I'm good to go.
Man, defense versus offense, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So good, man. Let's cover. How are you for time? You doing all right?
I'm good. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go. I want to hit here on habits. All right, we've talked about the morning routine habits, the business habits. I know for you, you had a fundamental pivot in 2008 in which you went from transactional to relational, and there was a shift inside of you about what conversations to people were about, right? Instead of just getting something from them, it became much deeper than that, which really probably very consistent with the value proposition shifting to the mission, right? As you started to bring the humanity of people's lives into it. But talk to us a little bit about that, what that looks like from a habit standpoint.
Yeah, for me, it started with calls. I would just call people to see how they were doing. That was the number one thing. It was like, okay, I'm going to make 3 calls today. I'm going to win the day. And it got back to my coach telling me, Ben, you're never going to run a 4-minute mile if you don't do your morning run. And I said, Coach, I'm running 50 miles a week. A 3-minute morning run, jogging, is not going to do anything for me. And he said, but that is going to build your mitochondria because it's a slower run. It's not taxing. It's easy. But it's the easy things that's why other people don't succeed. You got to do the little discipline, build your mitochondria. And so I thought, okay, well, this is kind of the same thing. I just have to do the easy thing. Well, what is that? I'm going to call 3 people a day, and I'm going to ask good questions. Hey, Billy's playing soccer. Hey, what position is Billy playing? And oftentimes just that second question, that follow-up question would lead to them reaching out to me and saying, hey, thanks for checking in this week. Billy scored a goal this weekend. Now, if I would have just called and said, how are things? Hey, do you know anyone thinking of buying or selling a home? I wouldn't have been on his mind. I wouldn't have been on his radar. But the fact that, how are your kids doing? And then he told me something, and then I took more interest and said, well, what position does he play? Now he's thinking about me when I'm not even around. And that's not a business principle. That's a life principle. You just love on people. And if you do it enough, you're going to make this world a lot better place. So for me, the daily, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and how much better is your world, right? Instead of calls where it feels like rejected, no, I don't want to buy or sell, but it's like, you have to talk about Billy, like in soccer and right. I mean, anyway, continue on.
It's such a more fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like work. I mean, this is the best profession in the world, in my opinion. One, because you get to create your destiny every single day. You get to wake up and say, I'm going to change someone's life today. And not because I helped them buy or sell a house. It's because I called and asked about them. I think right now, something we're talking about on our team, and I'm going to plug my computer in real quick. Sorry, this is live in effect. There we go. One of the big things we're talking about on our team is the number one asset we have. And coming out of a pandemic, I think this business is even easier because we're not talking about interest rates. We're talking about human capital. And that's what we've got, human capital. We might not have a massive marketing budget, but we don't need it if we care. And so if we're just reaching out to the people that already have raised their hand and said, hey, Ben, I like you. I trust you. Continue to swim in that pool. As far as disciplines and habits for business, it was calling those 3 people a day. And once you start to get a little momentum from there, now we're going to call 4. Now we're going to call 5. Now we're going to follow up with a personal note. I have what I call a board of directors in my database. I have 12 people, and I'm excited for December because I'm going to reach out to 12 new people. And what I do is I'll call and I'll say, hey, Justin, I know you trust me. I know you like me. I know you're going to support my business. Yes, Ben, absolutely. I'll post on social media is the times that other agents yell at me, or I've shown someone 13 houses and they decide to save $1,300 and they call another realtor. And so can I just depend on you that if I'm having a rough day, I'm just going to reach out to you and call you. And just, I'm not going to talk about work. I'm just going to reach out. And the amount of people that, like, I switch it out every year. And every year, hey, can I be on your board of directors again this year? Nah, I'm trying to spread the wealth. Well, hey, if you're ever having a bad day, call me. The fascinating thing, Justin, is they're calling me when they have a bad day.
Wow.
And because they're not in the real estate industry, they're calling me a lot more than I'm calling them. It's been a social science phenomenon. I am now the soft spot for them because I've been vulnerable to say, hey, life isn't perfect all the time. Can I depend on you to reach out? Mm-hmm. And they reach out to me. It's been a great spot for me in my business because I do have, like, a couple of weeks ago, I had an agent screaming at me and I'm trying to get off. She's screaming, by the way, because she doesn't have any other deals coming. That's why she's upset. Mm-hmm. And I felt sorry for her. But during that call, I thought, I'm going to call Jason. I'm going to call Jason as soon as this call's over, which made that conversation go a lot better.
Yeah. When, I believe strongly that people love to be cared for, and maybe just as much we love to care for others. And you give people an opportunity to have a responsibility, opportunity to serve back. And it's probably the most impactful thing we can do for them, because we all know how we feel when we serve. Like, what a brilliant idea to not only care for other people, but give them the opportunity to care for you. That's awesome.
Right. Well, you and I are on Zoom. Like, we like each other. I'm excited to see you on the 19th. Yeah. People are watching this because they're interested. Yeah. So we do have this Zoom connection. It's going to be, we're going to hug it out on the 19th. Totally. But think of the tens of millions of people or the hundreds of people that we know that are stuck on Zoom, have been stuck on Zoom over the last 2 years with people that they don't like working with. And it's a burn for 8 hours. and then they get off and they got to teach their kids school. This is such an easy time, in my opinion, to grow our business in an organic way, just by showing people that we care and that we're here and we're available. That's it. And they might not buy a house next week, but they might refer someone, and they might, when the market hits them correctly, we'll have more than we know what to do with.
Ben, you're just full of gold nuggets. You're right, buddy. I absolutely love this. I think we've hit on about everything. And maybe I'll just ask this last question. Right now, we've got buyers and sellers who are they're holding on to last year's expectations, right? Mm-hmm. Sellers are up here, holding on to last year's equity. Buyers are down here, holding on to last year's rates. And we know this happens every time a shift happens. There's this having to come down to an agreement. What have you found is a key skill set that I think every agent needs to know right now of how do they communicate effectively to get these groups to come together, right? To come to an agreement. What are you finding? What are you teaching? What are you seeing that would help an agent right now with the skill set of thriving during these times that some might find to be very challenging?
Sure. So it's a great question, by the way. The image that pops into my mind is something that I talk to my clients about. This vehicle has 4 tires. I am one, you are one, the seller is one, or the buyer is one, whoever the opposite party is, and the other realtor. What I failed to learn early on in my career is that other agent wants a deal. That's why they took the listing. That's why they took the buyer. And I was so adversarial with that other agent that one showed my house last week, and I thought, oh no, I owe them a big sorry. I hope they write so I can apologize. I called and reached out to them and apologized. But we have to be on the same team, and we have to be cordial to one another. And what I understand now is that other agent is also my client. My client is whoever I'm representing, who I have a fiduciary responsibility to get the best Vito Corleone deal that I can get for them. But at the same time, I have to treat the other agent as though they are also my client. So that way it's a smooth transaction. I did 75 deals this year. I'll do that again. The average realtor is doing 4.5. And I need to recognize that not everyone's where I'm at. Not everyone wants to be where I'm at, by the way. But I also need to understand and respect the fact that some of these people are just trying to put bread on the table. And that's where I was. And I need to consciously put myself in that position. And the other thing I try to tell my clients and the other realtor is, hey, I know we're in the canoe. My client and I are in the back here. We both have an oar. I need you and your client to row effectively as well. But we're all in this together. That's why we came together. And just having those little conversations, it really puts everyone at ease, and it lets everyone know we're going to get to the finish line. I just got a text 10 minutes before we went on that said, thank you for the can-do attitude. I know we will put this together. You've been a dream to work with. You've been a dream to communicate with. Now, I got my client an extra $1,700 that my client didn't really care about, but I got it. And it was all because of the communication trail with the other agent. He'll be excited to hear about it, but he didn't really care about it. But that's my fiduciary responsibility. But I got it because the other agent and I had a good rapport with one another.
It's almost as if, Ben, is that the agents on the other side of the deal are also clients, that you treat them as if they are your clients. And 100%. If you're trying to get people to come together on a transaction, it really is a paradigm shift that shouldn't be so far-fetched, right? As people are like, wait a minute, but they're on the other side of the deal. You're negotiating against each other, right?
Right.
I think I shared this. Go ahead.
I have an email that goes out, and I send it to 185 realtors in the Portland market, my competition. And it's, hey, this is what I learned in a negotiation last week. Hey, here's what I did with a client that was really struggling through a divorce. Here's what, whatever it is. And I've gotten some responses from agents that say, hey man, appreciate this, but not your audience. You're supposed to send this to your clients. I don't know how I got on your list. Well, you're on my list because you showed my property 2 weeks ago and I liked you. You're kidding me. No, you're on my list because we did a deal 2 years ago and I had a good experience, and I want to pour into you because it's going to come back at some point. So, again, having a client appreciation program for my cooperating agents, I think it's going to pay some big dividends down the road.
What a brilliant idea. I shared with you the story of an agent that I met with. He was early in the business, and he was just bragging about the fact of like my value proposition, right? That takes us back to Van Andrews in 2008. My value proposition is I'm going to win. When we negotiate, like it was a win-lose, and that was the only way that he was going to win is if someone else lost. And it's hearing you speak that's becoming much more obvious just how off that perspective is. And I haven't checked back to see if he's either still, in fact, I know he is still in the business, and I'm confident that at this point he's changed his tune a little bit and realized that the other agent is not the enemy. I don't think he yet sees them as the clients like you do, right? Yeah. Which is a whole nother level of kind of maturity in this industry. But what a great perspective. I love that. I think in this market, everybody can get on the same page and everybody can be helping each other along. Things actually happen as opposed to working against each other. Right. So Ben, I feel like you and I could hang out all day long, and I'd like to, but unfortunately, I know
someday. That's good.
I'd love that. We go running, but you'd have to like wait for me a lot.
Look at these chipmunk cheeks. I'm good.
We'll be pacing right with each other. Anyway, it's been a total pleasure. I want to thank you so much for everything you have contributed to this audience. Can't wait to put you on a stage here coming up on the 19th. It's going to be awesome. Let me just ask one more question that I ask everybody that crosses the Think Bigger Real Estate stage, which is you're a big thinker, Ben, and you're thinking even bigger all the time. What is it that you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your possibilities? What does that look like?
It's for me now, it's buying my time with my money. So I'm building my team out a little bit differently. So Henry's 11, my son's 11, and I could kind of get emotional even thinking about that. But I want to invest in that relationship as much as I can over the next 7 years. And the truth is his buddies will be driving him 4 years. So that's thinking big for me is buying my time back so I can be with my family.
And you're speaking right to the heart of this show that we go beyond success to significance. And you're a guy that embodies both. So thank you again so much for all you've contributed. For everybody tuning in now or after the fact via the podcast, we appreciate you. And our final request is this: go think bigger. Ben, thanks for helping us do that today, my friend. I appreciate you more than you know.
Thank you. Good to see you.
If you enjoyed this episode, then I have a very special invitation for you. I have created a private Facebook community called Successful Real Estate Agents, where the focus is going beyond success, having both a successful business and a significant life. If you're not